The first frost arrives quietly, almost imperceptibly, as a crystalline hush that seeps into every branch and burrow of the Siberian taiga. Before the heavy snows and relentless blizzards claim the landscape, there is a moment of fragile transition. An early morning when the wind shifts from a warm southern sigh to a bone-biting whisper from the north. In these hours before sunrise, the forest holds its breath. Each exhalation of wildlife, every twitch, every rustle, pauses as if the entire ecosystem senses the turning of a page, the end of the long, fruitful summer, and the opening of a season that will test every living creature's capacity for endurance. Beneath the papery birch bark, the sap slows, cells stiffen, and leaves curl inward, blackening at their margins with the first touch of frost. A film of ice knits the needles of the larches, transforming green forests into rolling expanses of silver. Even the rivers, swollen with late autumn rains, begin to sluggishly accrete slushy veneers. Within hours, a thin crust forms at the water's edges, betraying the unseen tug of temperatures plunging toward freezing. The air becomes a sieve. Every breath draws in a fraction of a degree colder, each exhale crystallizing into ghostly vapors that drift upward like ethereal smoke. Amid this silent metamorphosis, the Siberian chipmunk, the industrious hoarder of the forest floor, moves with urgent purpose. Once darting through sunlit clearings, collecting seeds and berries, it now becomes the embodiment of instinctual pragmatism. Its small body, barely large enough to span two adult human hands, is governed by an intricate balance of energy and heat loss. With the ambient air temperature hovering just below zero, the chipmunk must pull stored fat and cached supplies to maintain its core temperature above the critical threshold of 37 degrees Celsius. A single gram of seed consumes an astonishing amount of metabolic heat when oxidized, yet every gram eaten hastens the depletion of the very hoard meant to ensure its survival. Over the next few days, camera eye perspectives track its frenetic foraging. Cheek pouches balloon like tiny bellows, cheeks flushed pink from exertion, eyes bright with the single-minded focus of life or death. Above, perched discreetly on low branches, the hazel grouse readies its own defenses against the cold. These stocky, ground-dwelling birds possess a remarkable adaptation, the ability to regulate feather loft to adjust insulation. As temperatures drop, dense down beneath their outer contour feathers fluffs out, creating micro-pockets of still air that trap metabolic warmth. Yet as the dusk of autumn deepens, even this feat is tested. When fluffed fully, their plumage swells into a rounded silhouette that resembles a tufted cluster of fallen leaves, providing both warmth and camouflage against nighttime predators. Infrared-sensitive lenses catch the subtle rise in skin temperature around their legs, where bare scales radiate heat. Here, the grouse frequently tuck one leg at a time under their bodies, alternating sides to minimize heat loss. But survival is a collective drama, not a solo performance. In the same undergrowth where chipmunks gather, the vole networks unfold, a labyrinthine world of tunnels beneath the leaf litter. These subnivean passages, trapped between the snowline's imminent descent and the leaf litter floor, become conduits of survival. Voles, cotton-tailed and grey-bellied, exploit the insulating properties of the early snow, which, once it arrives, will stabilize the temperature underground at around -1 to -2 degrees Celsius, far warmer than the bitter air above. They forage on roots, fungus, and the occasional fallen mushroom, their incisors specially adapted to gnaw through the frozen earth. Each bite generates modest heat, but they must eat almost continuously. A vole's metabolic rate can be 10 times that of an insect in summer. Even as day fades, this hidden world thrums with life, unseen by most, yet vital to the predators whose fate depends on it. At twilight, the forest's apex predator, the Amur tiger, emerges from its lair with a different calculus. A solitary hunter adapted to lean seasons, it carries enough fat reserves to survive a fortnight without a kill, but each passing day increases the risk of starvation. Its thick winter coat, composed of dense underfur and long, coarser guard hairs, pins moisture before it can freeze close to the skin, and its black striped camouflage blends seamlessly with the skeletal trunks of birch and fir. Using its extraordinary hearing, the tiger can detect the heartbeat of a shivering boar beneath several inches of snow. Yet on this cusp of frost, before the ground hardens completely, the tiger must rely on scent trails left by boar and deer moving to their winter feeding grounds. These ungulates too feel the pull of the first frost. Reindeer migrate toward the lichen-rich valleys, employing a sweeping gait that conserves energy by minimizing vertical oscillation. Their wide, shovel-like hooves double as snowshoes, distributing their weight to avoid plunging through fragile crusts of newly formed frost. Alongside them, wild boar root through tannin-stained soils for acorns concealed amid the detritus, each meal a bulwark against the cold that numbs their extremities and slows their metabolic engines. By midnight, the riverine edges, now crusted in ice, grow still. But the buzzing heartbeat of the ecosystem persists. A pine marten, mid-weight arboreal predator, scales a fluted spruce trunk, lured by the rustling of squirrels in leaf nests high above. Its paws, equipped with sharp, semi-retractable claws, cling to bark with effortless agility, even when the wood is slick with frost. Using scent gland secretions at the base of its tail, it marks its territory along the trunk, both a territorial claim and a silent warning to competitors that the hunt is underway. One realizes that the first frost is more than a meteorological milestone. It is a gauntlet thrown down, a primal challenge inscribed into the DNA of every inhabitant. The snow that will soon blanket the land promises both protection and peril. Caribou will use its insulating qualities to shield the voles below. Wolverines will scent the fresh tracks of mice and squirrels above. Foxes, draped in their russet or white winter pelage, will pounce with uncanny precision on unsuspecting prey. But until that snow arrives in earnest, the forest remains in an uneasy balance, a world of exposed vulnerabilities. As dawn breaks on the day of the first true frost, the landscape transforms before the viewer's eyes. The sun, low and pale, slants through the frosted boughs, igniting each droplet of frozen fog into a momentary spark of fire. Crystalline mantles glitter on every surface, refracting light into rainbow prisms that dance and fade in less than a heartbeat. The camera glides low over the ground, capturing a chipmunk whisking away the last of its hoard into a subterranean cache, pausing only when a flicker of movement in the branches above signals the departure of a grouse into the dusk. Every sound is amplified in the frigid stillness: the crack of ice, the sigh of wind through pine needles, the subdued patter of tiny feet in search of sustenance. Here, at the threshold of winter's dominion, the scientist and the storyteller converge. Thermoregulation unfolds not as an abstract concept, but as the trembling breath of a vole cocooned in its frosted tunnel. Migration patterns emerge in the straining gait of deer silhouetted against a grey horizon. Symbiotic relationships surface in the duet of seed-eating rodents and the very fungi whose spores they unwittingly disperse. Every behavioral cue, each flick of an ear, twitch of a tail, or spread of feathers, is a narrative thread in the tapestry of survival. This chapter ends not with victory or defeat, but with tension, a moment pregnant with the promise of both hardship and wonder. As the viewer's gaze lingers on the frost-edged world, the invitation is clear. Bear witness to nature's unforgiving curriculum, where every adaptation is a lesson in resilience and every freeze is a test of existence. Autumn may have ceded control, but life persists, poised on the knife edge of preparation or peril, as Siberia braces itself for the true fury of winter. Under the pallid light of a winter dawn, the Siberian tiger emerges like a living brushstroke across the snow-laden canvas of the taiga. Each movement measured, each breath a plume of vapor dissolving into the frozen morning air. Here, in the vastness of the Russian Far East, where the mercury plunges well below -30°C and the snowpack can reach depths of 2 meters, Panthera tigris altaica presides as the undisputed sovereign of a world sculpted by ice. Its massive paws, nearly a third larger than those of its tropical cousins, act as natural snowshoes, distributing weight to prevent sinking into powdery drifts and allowing silent passage over terrain that would swallow lesser predators. Adult males weighing up to 300 kilograms carry enough fat reserves and muscle to endure weeks without a substantial meal, yet this bulk must be constantly managed. Too much weight slows the tiger's acceleration, compromising its ability to close within striking distance of wary prey. Too little, and its thermoregulation falters, risking fatal hypothermia. As the camera glides low among frost-encrusted trunks, viewers witness the tiger's acute sensory adaptations. Its whiskers, stiff and deeply rooted, fan out to detect subtle vibrations, an imperceptible heartbeat of a Sika deer bedded beneath a thicket of fur. The tiger's ears, funnel-shaped with a dense layer of insulating fur, swivel independently, pinpointing the soft scrape of hooves on compacted snow. In summer, these senses translate to stalking through verdant undergrowth. In winter, They become life-saving instruments in a near-silent expanse, where a misstep or a moment of indecision can mean another day of fasting, or worse, starvation. Tracking behavior unfolds with almost ritualistic precision. Before the first snowfall seals the forest floor, tigers patrol territories that can span hundreds of square kilometers, scent-marking trails with urine and glandular secretions to communicate presence and reproductive status. But when snow blankets the land, these markers fade, and the tiger must rely on spatial memory, revisiting landmarks like river bends or rocky outcrops to navigate its domain. Once the drifts arrive, old trails vanish and new ones form overnight. The tiger shifts strategies, pressing alongside frozen riverbanks where currents undercut the ice, creating firm crusts on which ungulates often pass in search of lichen. Here, the tiger's keen eyesight discerns faint imprints left by reindeer and wild boar, long after human trackers would give up the chase. In the hush before a hunt, the tiger crouches along a natural funnel, a deadfall between two ridges, where prey cannot diverge into dense forest without exposing themselves to a well-placed ambush. Its muscles coil beneath that frost-touched coat, and every exhalation radiates heat from a body poised between starvation and satiation. In this crucible, a single successful kill provides enough nourishment to sustain the tiger for up to 2 weeks, but the capture itself is a gamble. Sub-zero temperatures slow reaction times even for apex predators. A startled boar can charge through the snow, reducing the efficiency of a pounce, or an elk can spin and gore the tiger with its hardened antlers. Here, the balance between hunger and energy expenditure becomes acute. Tracking a wounded prey through waist-deep drifts can expend more calories than the meal provides. When the tiger does strike, the sequence is both brutal and breathtakingly efficient. It targets the throat or nape, where a single crushing bite severs the spinal cord or suffocates the prey within moments. The tug-of-war that follows sends sprays of snow into the air like fractured diamonds, and the forest holds its breath as predator and prey wrestle in a flurry of dust and blood. Should the prey fall, the tiger must decide whether to feed immediately, risking scavengers drawn by the scent, or drag the carcass under canopy cover, a task requiring immense strength and determination. In lean seasons, the tiger caches portions beneath boughs, covering them with brush and snow to stave off decay in temperatures that would otherwise preserve the meat indefinitely, yet starvation is never far behind. As winter deepens, daylight dwindles to mere hours, compressing hunting windows. Ungulates adapt by moving in smaller groups and staying closer to sheltering forests, where they can lick lichen from tree trunks or root beneath snow for dormant vegetation. Their eyes, equipped with a reflective tapetum lucidum, detect the slightest movement in low light, making stealth a necessity for the tiger. In response, the tiger's coat, a masterclass of camouflage, features broad vertical stripes that break up its outline against the dappled play of shadows and snow. Infrared footage reveals the insulating prowess of its pelage. The fur retains nearly 90% of body heat, even when coated in frost. Beneath this insulation, a dense underfur traps a thin layer of air, further reducing convective heat loss. Survival here is also a lesson in metabolic ingenuity. Unlike endotherms that bulk up on fat, Siberian tigers possess a higher basal metabolic rate than their tropical relatives, generating heat through relentless caloric burn. This adaptation demands an annual kill rate that can exceed 60 ungulates, a staggering number in a landscape where prey density is low. In the spring thaw, tigers compensate by driving sows and their young into more vulnerable open areas, capitalizing on the maternal drive to protect offspring. In autumn, they exploit rutting behavior among deer, where males are distracted by mating, carrying less fat reserves, and become easier targets. While the tiger epitomizes solitary strength, its existence is interwoven with the broader ecosystem. Scavengers such as wolverines and foxes patrol the edges of kills, picking at scraps and inadvertently distributing nutrients across the landscape. The bones left behind become a feast for birds of prey, whose digestive acids break them down into minerals that leach into the soil, feeding the very plants that sustain herbivores. In this cyclical exchange, the tiger's role extends beyond predator. It is an ecosystem engineer, a keystone species whose hunt shapes the behavior, health, and movement patterns of countless other organisms. Despite these formidable adaptations, the Amur tiger's survival hangs by a thread. Habitat fragmentation, illegal poaching for its fur and body parts, and the diminishing size of core territories push this species toward the brink. Conservation corridors and strict anti-poaching patrols have stabilized populations in recent decades, but climate change now threatens to rewrite the rules of the frozen realm. As winters warm, prey distributions shift, snowpacks become inconsistent, and the tiger's finely tuned hunting strategies may falter in the face of a transformed environment. Yet for now, the Siberian tiger remains a living testament to evolutionary mastery over cold. In each stride, each silent gaze, and each calculated pounce, it embodies the relentless will to survive in one of Earth's most unforgiving arenas. The viewer, transported into the hush of endless white, comes to understand that this is not a mere spectacle of brute force, but a symphony of biological innovation. Paws as snowshoes, fur as armor, metabolism as furnace, and behaviors honed by millennia of frost-forged selection. Here, at the edge of endurance, the titan of the snow stands as both predator and guardian, its fate intertwined with the health of a wilderness built on ice and defined by survival against the cold. Under a sky the color of muted steel, the Arctic tundra stretches into a horizon of ghostly stillness, each crystalline flake drifting like a whispered secret in the frigid wind. Into this monochrome expanse steps the Arctic fox, Vulpes lagopus, a creature whose very existence hinges on mastering the art of vanishing. Its winter coat is a marvel of natural engineering, thick, snowy white fur so densely packed that each hair acts as a microscopic prism, scattering light while trapping a layer of insulating air next to the skin. Against this backdrop of endless whiteness, the fox becomes a living mirage, invisible to both the keen-eyed snowy owl hovering overhead and the skittish lemmings burrowing beneath the surface. Yet camouflage is merely the canvas upon which a far more complex portrait of survival is painted. Beneath the fox's silent paws lies a world of hidden tunnels and subnivean chambers, where small mammals carve out their secret realms beneath the insulating blanket of snow. Here, the Arctic fox's acute auditory system comes into play. With ears finely tuned to detect the faintest vibrations, the fox can pinpoint the minute rustle of a vole's heartbeat or the distant scuttling of lemmings tunneling through compacted drifts. In temperatures plummeting below 40 degrees C, every sound is muffled, yet the fox's outer ear flaps, lined with short, stiff guard hairs, funnel sound waves inward while protecting the delicate inner ear from frostbite. Infrared camera footage reveals how, in the stillness before a strike, the fox's body temperature near its extremities drops by several degrees, reducing the thermal gradient and minimizing heat loss during those critical, energy-intensive moments of stalking. When prey moves beneath a meter-thick layer of ice-hard snow, the fox's hunting technique transforms into an almost ballet-like performance. It stands motionless on its hind legs, head tilted at a precise 45-degree angle, listening for the faintest rhythm of life below. A sudden shift in weight, a coiling of its hindquarters, and the fox launches itself into the air, pivoting mid-flight to drive its muzzle straight through the snow's surface. This pounce, perfected through countless hunting seasons, can cover nearly 2 meters and requires exact calculation of snow depth, prey location, and body trajectory. The culmination of this leap is as lethal as it is graceful. The fox lands directly on its quarry, jaws snapping shut before the victim can scramble to safety. Each successful hunt yields a caloric bounty that can sate the fox for days, vital in an environment where energy expenditure for movement demands up to 5 times more calories than in milder climates. Yet the Arctic fox's diet cannot rely solely on the fortunes of the hunt. As winter tightens its grip and small mammal populations ebb in the natural cycle, the fox demonstrates remarkable dietary flexibility. In coastal areas where pack ice converges with land, foxes patrol the edges for carcasses of seals left behind by polar bears. Here, they partake in an ecological partnership of sorts. Polar bears, consuming seals fat to skin, leave behind nutrient-rich scraps that sustain a network of scavengers, with the Arctic fox at the forefront. The fox's keen sense of smell allows it to detect seal remains from over a kilometer away, even beneath layers of snow and ice, thanks to olfactory receptors that are among the most sensitive of any terrestrial mammal. When carrion is scarce, foxes shift again, foraging for seaweed washed ashore, insects frozen into the intertidal zone, and even the occasional bird egg found in the dwindling summer nests of migratory species. This omnivorous opportunism underscores the fox's role as both predator and scavenger, its survival intertwined with the pulse of an ecosystem governed by extremes. As the camera drifts alongside a nomadic fox traversing miles of barren wastes, viewers witness an endurance test beyond the hunt. Arctic foxes are consummate wanderers, capable of covering upwards of 30 kilometers in a single night, driven by the dual imperatives of finding food and seeking mates. In the vast emptiness of the tundra, dens offer rare refuges, rock crevices or earthen burrows beneath raised mounds called frost boils, where temperatures can climb several degrees above the frigid surface outside. Within these labyrinthine burrows, families gather to share body heat, females caring for litters of up to a dozen kits, each barely larger than a human fist at birth. Here, the kits develop their thick white fur in situ, learning to navigate the world of snow by the guidance of their mother's tail, which she wraps around them like a living blanket. This tail-wrapping behavior serves a dual purpose. It conserves precious body warmth and offers visual cues for kits to follow when the wind-whipped whiteness obscures all other landmarks. Thermoregulation in the Arctic fox embodies a finely balanced equation. Its compact body, short muzzle and small fur-covered ears minimize the surface area through which heat can dissipate, while the multiple layers of piloerection adjustable fur allow fine-tuned responses to shifting thermal loads. During relentless blizzards, when wind chill can drop catastrophic heat, the fox employs a unique strategy. It dives headfirst into the leeward side of snowdrifts, creating a snow cave where temperatures remain close to freezing rather than plummeting further. Within these temporary shelters, the fox can lower its metabolic rate by up to 30%, conserving energy until the storm abates. Thermal imaging reveals that even when buried, its body maintains a near uniform temperature, thanks to a combination of dense subcutaneous fat and a counter-current heat exchange system in its limbs that returns warmer blood toward the body core, while cooling blood heading toward extremities. Throughout its vast range, from the high Arctic islands to the fringes of the boreal forest, the Arctic fox navigates an ever-changing mosaic of conditions. In years when lemming populations crash, a phenomenon driven by multi-annual cycles and exacerbated by unpredictable snow conditions, the resilience of the fox is tested. In such lean times, population densities shrink as foxes either perish or disperse in search of more productive territories. Genetic studies demonstrate that Arctic foxes maintain a surprisingly low degree of inbreeding, suggesting that long-distance movements help preserve genetic diversity, a crucial buffer against disease and environmental change. Moreover, recent observations have recorded unprecedented interactions at the forest's edge, where Arctic foxes confront red foxes expanding northward as global temperatures rise. The red fox, larger and more aggressive, outcompetes its Arctic cousin in milder winters, leading to shifts in territorial boundaries and heightened competition for resources. These interspecific dynamics underscore the fragility of a species finely tuned to a world of ice, one where even small changes in climate can reverberate through predator-prey networks. Despite these mounting pressures, the Arctic fox persists, a testament to evolutionary innovation in the planet's harshest laboratory. Its snowy cloak, once a passive defense, becomes an active tool for stalking muskox calves through blinding blizzards. Its acute hearing, honed on the tundra's silent stage, transforms the vacuum of winter into a map of subterranean life. Its tail, more than a mere appendage, emerges as a mobile sanctuary for its young and a thermal lifeline for itself. In every leap above the drifts and every cautious tread across thin ice, the fox embodies a suite of adaptations that resonate far beyond its diminutive frame. As the sun dips below the horizon on another Arctic twilight, where even the faintest rosy afterglow is chewed away by the advancing night, the viewer is left with a profound appreciation for this ghost of the blizzard. The Arctic fox, a creature of extremes, reveals the intricate choreography of life at the edge of survivability. It teaches us that in the severest cold, nature's ingenuity flourishes, crafting solutions in fur, metabolism, and behavior that defy our ordinary expectations of what it means to endure. Here, in the fusion of science and spectacle, the Arctic fox stands not simply as an icon of camouflage, but as a living chronicle of resilience, adaptability, and the unyielding will to thrive in a world shaped by ice and wind. Under a sky the color of molten pewter, the Arctic tundra unfolds in an expanse of dazzling white, a landscape sculpted by wind and temperature into gentle dunes of snow that shift and reform like slow waves in a frozen sea. Here, where the ground remains locked in permafrost beneath a crust of ice, life persists through collective perseverance. In this realm of extremes, two of nature's most formidable survivors, the muskox and the reindeer, embody the power of the herd. Their stories are not of solitary heroism, but of communal resilience, each individual bound to its peers in a choreography of mutual defense, resource sharing, and movement that elevates the group above the inhospitable forces of winter. As daylight bleeds into the horizon, a herd of musk oxen emerges from the low-lying willows and birch scrub, their shaggy coats brushing the snow like living carpets of mahogany and ochre. Each coat bears two distinct layers, a coarse, water-repellent outer guard hair that deflects sleet and wind, and beneath it, the kiviut, the finest, warmest underwool known to science. Grown exclusively by this species, kiviut fibers trap air with such efficiency that it can insulate against temperature differentials of more than 60 degrees. Yet its unique thermal properties also allow heat generated by exertion to escape, preventing fatal overheating during exertive behaviors such as stampeding or wallowing. As the herd walks, their collective weight compacts the snow beneath their broad hooves, forging a windswept path that eases the way for those that follow. It is a dynamic trail, constantly redrawn by the lead animals and reshaped by each successive step, demonstrating an emergent form of social engineering where individual movements coalesce into a shared infrastructure. Maintaining position within the herd is a life or death proposition. Sub-adult musk oxen position themselves in the polished center, where the snowpack is deepest and the wind's sting is least fierce, while older, more battle-hardened bulls guard the periphery. When wolves close in, these bulls form an unbroken ring, horns outward, creating a living wall of steel. From the vantage point of a camera nestling at ground level, one sees the steam of wolf breath momentarily hang like lanterns in the gloom before the pack lunges. Yet the circle holds. The musk oxen's interlocking horns and shoulder blades form an impenetrable barricade, each animal's bone and muscle a testament to natural selection's honing of anatomy for defense. The tactic works not because a single ox is invincible, but because the group's collective structure amplifies each individual's strength. Beyond these dramatic showdowns, survival depends equally on foraging. Beneath the deep snow, lichen, sometimes called reindeer moss, provides a caloric lifeline. Musk oxen use their broad, powerful hooves to scrabble through drifts in a concerted effort that resembles industrial excavation. When a snowbank stands more than a meter deep, an individual ox may take hundreds of passes to reveal enough lichen to meet its daily requirements of roughly 5,000 kilocalories, energy necessary to maintain core body temperatures above the critical threshold. But by working in tandem, musk ox herds excavate more efficiently, reducing exposure time to the wind and sharing the spoils among all members. This cooperative digging also benefits the tundra itself. Each pit exposes nutrient-rich soil that, upon thawing, becomes fertile ground for pioneer plant species, creating microhabitats that support a wider array of Arctic life. Parallel to this subterranean scavenging, great herds of reindeer, caribou in North America, undertake one of the planet's most epic migrations. In spring and autumn, hundreds of thousands of individuals surge across great distances, guided by memory, magnetic orientation, and social learning. Their antlers, shed and regrown annually, serve not only as weapons, but as snow shovels, flicking away drifts to unearth grasses, sedges, and mosses dormant beneath the ice. As reindeer move, they follow ancient migratory corridors that weave through river valleys and across mountain passes, often against headwinds that chill even the most robust coats. Their hooves spread wide in winter, akin to snowshoes, then contract in summer to expose sharp edges ideal for gripping rocky terrain, a remarkable example of seasonal morphological adaptation to diverse substrates. Within these migrating herds, individuals adopt roles based on age and experience. Matriarchal females lead the groups, steering calves and younger animals toward dependable foraging grounds, while bulls often segregate into bachelor groups until the rut, when hierarchy and muscle mass determine mating opportunities. Calves take their first steps within hours of birth, driven by the imperative to keep pace with the herd. Their neonatal fur, initially sparse, thickens rapidly with insulating down, and in just a few weeks, they can flank adults in open tundra entirely on their own strength. Adult reindeer, despite a lower basal metabolic rate compared to musk oxen, demonstrate an uncanny ability to modulate thermogenesis. In sub-zero temperatures, brown adipose tissue deposits around their shoulders and neck rapidly oxidize to generate heat, an evolutionary adaptation that safeguards vital organs during periods of scarcity and extreme cold. As autumn deepens into winter, both species face the same elemental foe, scarcity of daylight. Photoperiod-driven hormonal changes trigger shifts in behavior and physiology, known as photoperiodism. Longer nights stimulate melatonin production, which in turn influences thyroid function and metabolic rates in ways that conserve energy, slow growth, and induce molting of lighter summer coats in favor of denser, winter-suitable pelage. Such internal clockwork is synchronized across the herd, enabling group-wide shifts that ensure all members transition simultaneously, critical for maintaining the advantages of group movement and defense. The dynamics between these two iconic herds sometimes converge in symbiotic interactions. Wolves following migrating caribou may inadvertently guide musk oxen to more productive foraging sites, as the predator's path cuts through snowdrifts more deeply. Conversely, scavenging reindeer may pick at the frozen remains of a muskox kill, gleaning precious nutrients they otherwise could not obtain. These inadvertent overlaps underscore the tundra's interconnected web, where the fate of one species ripples through others, binding them in a network of mutual influence and occasional opportunism. Life on the tundra is not merely a static tableau of frozen hardship, but a dynamic, ever-shifting equilibrium. Snowstorms can reshape the landscape overnight, forcing herds to adapt migration routes mid-course. Predator densities fluctuate with the success of each winter's hunts, prompting herds to adjust their defensive formations or timing. Even within a single season, microclimates emerge. South-facing slopes may melt earlier, revealing spring greening that spurs delayed migrations and even partially breaks herd cohesion as individuals linger for extra grazing. These local variations demand behavioral flexibility, and both musk oxen and reindeer exhibit remarkable socio-behavioral plasticity, responding to immediate conditions without losing the long-term memory of ancestral strategies. As spring sunlight stretches the days and snow retreats, the tundra renews itself. Calves and calves of the year emerge into a mosaic of blooming flowers and fresh shoots, their coats shedding winter's armor for sleeker summer pelage. Yet the lessons of winter remain etched in every sinew and bone. The patterns of excavation, of ring formation against wolves, of synchronized migration, these are not mere survival tactics, but inherited legacies, cultural traditions encoded in the genes and social bonds of the herd. They illustrate how cooperation and collective behavior can amplify individual strengths, turning a frozen wasteland into a stage where life, in all its tenacity, persists against the odds. From the camera's perspective, tracking alongside a circling muskox huddle or soaring above a river of moving reindeer, the viewer gains an intimate appreciation for these giants on ice. The narrative flow bridges the behaviors of two distinct species, revealing common threads of adaptation: insulation through specialized fur, heat exchange systems that preserve core temperatures, hooves engineered for snow and tundra, and social structures that transform vulnerability into collective power. In the interplay of these elements, the tundra's seasonal extremities become a crucible of evolution, forging creatures that embody resilience not as solitary champions, but as members of a living code, survival enshrined in numbers, motion, and mutual dependence. As the sun finally glances off distant ridges, igniting the horizon with a fleeting gold, the scene fades not into darkness, but into a promise. The tundra, so often perceived as lifeless and barren, emerges as a vibrant theater of ecological intelligence, a place where the giants on ice teach us that in nature's coldest reaches, the path to survival lies not in isolation, but in the strength we find in one another. Here, in the silent white expanse, the herd reigns supreme, a testament to the power of unity in a world shaped by winter's most unforgiving hand. Beneath the endless blanket of white that cloaks the Siberian winter lies a hidden metropolis of tunnels and chambers, a subterranean kingdom where life endures in defiance of surface storms and sub-zero gales. As the snow accumulates above, the space between the frozen ground and the snowpack's underside, known as the sub-Nevian zone, becomes an insulated haven. Here, temperatures hover just below freezing, sparing its inhabitants from the lethal chill beyond. From this vantage, the world above is a distant echo. Countless rodents and cold-blooded creatures have carved a labyrinth of corridors through the earth, their existence dependent on both the shelter of snow's insulating power and the precise physiological feats that allow them to navigate months of darkness and deprivation. At the heart of this buried kingdom are the ground squirrels, their plump bodies bearing the weight of seasonal preparation. In late summer, these small mammals gorge on seeds and tubers, converting every calorie into dense fat deposits that serve as both fuel and thermal buffer during hibernation. By the time the first snows fall, each individual has excavated a multi-chambered burrow deep within the thaw-limited soil, often below the reach of frost penetration that can extend meters downward. One chamber serves as a communal nursery, another as a latrine to keep living spaces sanitary, and the largest as a hibernaculum, a snug circular enclave lined with shredded vegetation and squirrel fur to maximize insulation. Here, the squirrels undergo astonishing physiological transformations. Their heart rates slow from over 200 beats per minute to fewer than 10. Metabolic rates plummet to as little as 2% of active levels, and body temperatures drop to within a few degrees of the surrounding Earth without crossing the lethal threshold. In this suspended animation, their hearts beat in long, intermittent pauses, each pulse a whisper of life echoing through the stillness of winter. Thermoregulation in these hibernators is a masterclass in energy conservation. By allowing peripheral body parts to cool almost to ambient temperature, ground squirrels reduce the gradient for heat loss, preserving core temperature with minimal metabolic expenditure. Yet they cannot remain in torpor indefinitely. At intervals lasting days or even weeks, they undergo periodic arousals, during which metabolic heat production spikes dramatically, raising body temperatures back to near normal levels. This cyclical rewarming consumes a disproportionate share of their fat reserves, sometimes up to 80% of total energy used during hibernation, but is critical for immune function, clearance of metabolic waste, and maintenance of essential organ systems. The precise triggers for arousal remain an active field of research, implicating both endogenous circannual rhythms and environmental cues, such as fluctuations in burrow temperature and carbon dioxide levels. Interwoven with this rodent realm is the remarkable story of amphibians that embrace the winter in a frozen state. The Siberian wood frog, Rana amurensis, takes cryopreservation to its extreme, literally allowing its body to freeze solid. Before the first ice crystals form, these frogs accumulate high concentrations of blood-borne cryoprotectants, glucose and urea, up to 20 times baseline levels. These compounds act like biological antifreeze, reducing ice formation within cells and stabilizing cell membranes against mechanical damage during freeze-thaw cycles. As temperatures plunge, ice nucleation begins in extracellular spaces, and up to 65% of the frog's body water transitions into ice. The frog's heart ceases beating, its lungs collapse, and it essentially becomes a block of biologically preserved tissue. Yet when spring warms the world above, the ice within its body gradually melts, metabolic pathways restart, and within hours, the frog resumes breathing and movement, as though it has merely awoken from an unusually long nap. This astonishing feat hinges on a delicate balance. Too little cryoprotectant and intracellular ice destroys cells. Too much, and osmotic stresses can be fatal. Evolution has fine-tuned this process over millennia, conferring a survival strategy unmatched in its elegance. Even as these vertebrates embody extremes of torpor and freeze tolerance, the underground realm hosts myriad invertebrates that exhibit their own survival gambits. Certain beetles and springtails synthesize glycerol and antifreeze proteins that prevent ice crystal growth in their hemolymph, allowing them to remain active at temperatures below -5 degrees Celsius. Metes and spiders find refuge in microcavities lined with fungal hyphae, where metabolic heat generated by microbial respiration raises local temperatures enough to avert crystal formation. Every crevice in this hidden city offers a distinct microclimate, shaped by factors as varied as soil composition, microbial activity, and the metabolic warmth of clustered organisms. In some areas, the burrow walls themselves are reinforced by secreted waxes, creating a barrier against intruding moisture that would otherwise freeze and collapse the tunnels. Predator-prey dynamics in this underworld are as intricate as those on the surface. Stoats and weasels, diminutive carnivores that specialize in hunting beneath the snow, sense the vibrations of subterranean movements with feet and jaws attuned to detect the faintest tremors. Their slender bodies slip into narrow tunnels, and with lightning-fast reflexes, they navigate the maze, emerging onto prey in a sudden, decisive ambush. These predators in turn become prey for larger hunters. The shriek of an owl above the snowpack can send a stoat into the burrow's deepest recesses, seeking refuge in side chambers until the threat passes. Within the burrows, interactions are seldom solitary. Scent marking by rodents delineates personal spaces and family territories, yet the structural web of tunnels inevitably connects multiple families, leading to both cooperative and competitive encounters, sharing of warm chambers during extreme cold snaps, but also aggressive defense of prime nesting sites and food caches. Throughout the winter, the underground kingdom functions as a testament to the versatility of life under constraint. Soil temperatures at 10 centimeters depth stabilize around -2 degrees Celsius, even when surface air drops to -40 degrees Celsius, thanks to the insulating snow. Carbon dioxide levels rise through the respiration of hibernating creatures, triggering subtle behavioral responses. Frogs may begin thawing with elevated internal CO2 as a cue, while rodents adjust their periodic arousals to avoid hypercapnia. Microbial communities within the soil also play a critical role, slowly metabolizing organic matter and generating heat, sustaining a web of detritivores that continue to cycle nutrients through what might otherwise be a biologically dormant season. As winter approaches its zenith, every chamber, crevice, and passage becomes part of a complex orchestration of survival. The view from a micro-embedded camera might reveal a mouse nest lined with shredded bark and down, its occupants huddled in a communal ball, each breathing in tandem in a quiet rhythm that conserves heat while facilitating gas exchange. Elsewhere, a frog frozen in suspended animation lies nestled in a waterlogged depression of its burrow, its skin cinched tight but ready to reanimate at the first hint of spring warmth. Beyond, a stoat slinks through the network, nostrils flaring to detect the waft of rodent musk, ever watchful for the moment when hunger outweighs the risk of exposure. When the sun returns and temperatures creep above freezing, the buried kingdom prepares for another kind of transition. Snowmelt floods the subnivean tunnels, triggering a flush of activity. Ground squirrels stir, body temperatures rising with metabolic reactivation. Neonate frogs, their bodies thawed and whole, hop toward thawing surface pools. Invertebrates emerge, spurred by moisture and warmth into renewed feeding and reproduction. The soil itself breathes again, exchanging accumulated carbon dioxide for oxygen, and with each breath, the underground web reconnects to the world above. Through cinematographic lenses, this buried kingdom transforms from a silent enigma into a throbbing microcosm of resilience and adaptation. Its inhabitants, rodent and reptile alike, demonstrate that survival in Siberia is not merely a matter of braving the elements, but of orchestrating an array of physiological, behavioral, and ecological strategies that turn the most inhospitable season into a chapter of life, rather than a mere passage of death. In this underworld, thermoregulation is a collective enterprise. Migration takes the form of burrow-to-burrow movements. Symbioses flourish in shared chambers, and every heartbeat, or suspended heartbeat, becomes a testament to nature's capacity for ingenuity. As the viewer's perspective retreats from the burrow's interior into the full vista of thawing tundra, the buried kingdom stands revealed not as a hidden exception, but as a profound example of life's tenacity at the edge of possibility. Under a sky that shifts from bruised plum to the steely black of midnight, the Siberian winter contracts daylight into the merest sliver, transforming the landscape into a realm of perpetual half-light. In this world of fleeting sunrises and early star-crowned dusks, two masters of the darkness reign from above, the great grey owl and the snowy owl. Their aerial silhouettes, ghostly and silent, thread between skeletal trunks and over frozen plains, probing the deep hush for the faintest stirrings of life below. Here in the endless night, the rules of hunting and survival are rewritten in terms of sound and shadow rather than sight. Every feathered beat carries the weight of life or death, and every heartbeat of prey echoes like a beacon in the dark. The great grey owl, Europe's largest owl species by length, inhabits the forested edges of the taiga, where towering spruce and fir stand sentinel against icy winds. Its wingspan, exceeding 1.5 meters, is equipped with specialized leading-edge serrations, minute comb-like structures along the primary feathers that break up turbulent air and allow for almost completely silent flight. Camera-mounted microphones capture this near-soundless glide, registering only the softest whisper of displaced air as the owl navigates between branches in search of voles and lemmings below. These small mammals, which constitute up to 95% of the great grey's diet, tunnel into subnivean galleries, feeding on roots and underground fungus. Their vibrations, every echo of a gnawing tooth, every rustle along a narrow tunnel, become audible to the owl's asymmetrical ears, which lie at slightly different heights on the skull, creating a built-in system of acoustic triangulation. Within moments, the owl pinpoints subterranean prey with centimeter-level precision, hovering above the snow like a phantom before plunging talons first into the drifts. This hunting strategy is a breathtaking interplay of physics and biology. At -30 degrees Celsius, snowpack density varies dramatically over mere meters. A superficial crust may conceal a void or compress tenaciously over a shallow burrow. The great grey must adjust both wing beat and approach angle to avoid startling prey by sudden snow vibrations. Infrared footage reveals the owl's body heat tracing a slender plume, barely warming the still air as it aligns for the kill. Then, in a fraction of a second, it thrusts downward, talons outstretched, sinking as much as half a meter through the snow's insulating layer to seize its victim. The ensuing struggle, captured in slow motion, shows the owl's powerful legs anchoring itself against the snowpack, wings outstretched to balance pressure as it crushes the skull of the vole with a single, decisive bite. Thousands of kilometers to the north, across frozen lakes and tundra, the snowy owl rules a more exposed domain. Their pure white plumage, occasionally flecked with black barring in males and more heavily in females, serves as both camouflage against the winter glare and as a dazzling signal in the dimming light. Unlike the forest-bound great grey snowy owls hunt by day and night, often traversing dozens of kilometers in a single foray. During the peak of winter, when lemming populations crash or migrate, these owls display remarkable dietary flexibility, preying on ptarmigan, Arctic hares, even waterfowl blown off course by gales. Their eyes, among the largest of any owl species relative to body size, fill nearly half the volume of the skull, granting them extraordinary light-gathering capacity. The resulting visual acuity, combined with a tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer behind the retina, allows snowy owls to detect movement across vast, open expanses, even under cloud-lit snowfields. In one chilling scene, a snowy owl perches atop a solitary drift, its silhouette etched sharply against the endless white. Through super telephoto lenses, observers note the owl's head swiveling in near full rotation, an adaptation of flexible neck vertebrae that compensates for the fixed position of its eyes. As a sudden scurry of ptarmigan echoes across the ice, the owl's head locks onto the sound, followed by a singular blink. The pupil narrows to a pinprick, adjusting to the sudden influx of light. Then, with the economy of motion perfected over millennia, it takes flight. Its wing beats are powerful yet slow, each downstroke generating enough lift to carry its 2.5 kilogram mass over unbroken drifts. The camera's gimbal stabilizes the view as the owl descends, talons slicing through the air, snatching the ptarmigan in under 2 seconds from detection to capture. Thermoregulation under such conditions demands both physiological and behavioral adaptations. Both great grey and snowy owls possess dense layers of down beneath their outer feathers, providing nearly impenetrable insulation. In the great grey, this insulating layer averages 50 millimeters in depth, while the snowy owl's average approaches 70 millimeters, a necessary buffer against wind chills that can reach -60 degrees Celsius. Their feet and tarsi, often mistaken for scales, are instead enveloped by specialized feather tracts that extend down to the claws, reducing heat loss through extremities. Yet feathers alone are not enough. Both species frequently employ microhabitat tactics. Great greys select perches amidst wind-sheltered conifer clusters, while snowy owls roost on the lee side of terrain contours, minimizing exposure to biting gales. In the depths of midwinter, they may even rotate perches hourly, balancing energy expenditure between hunting and rest. Beyond the mechanics of hunting and thermoregulation, these owls play keystone roles in their ecosystems. Their predation patterns drive microecological cascades. When owls suppress vole populations around forest edges, they indirectly influence seed dispersal and vegetation patterns, allowing shrubby undergrowth to gain a foothold. Conversely, in the tundra, snowy owl predation on ptarmigan reduces grazing pressure on winter forage plants, shaping the distribution of lichens and mosses that underlie entire food webs. This top-down regulation reveals the complex interplay between predator and prey, where each aerial strike reverberates through the ground-level tapestry of life. Yet the hunt is not without risk. Blizzards can erode perches, drive prey deep into snowbanks beyond the reach of talons, and deafen the most acute ears. In such storms, snowy owls have been observed plunging almost blind into the snow, using their feathered facial discs, broad, interlocking arrays of vein-stiff feathers, to channel gust-driven vibrations toward their auditory apparatus. The resulting acoustic signals, distorted though they may be, can still betray subterranean movement. In one documented sequence, a snowy owl in near-zero visibility hunted for 45 minutes before emerging with a starved lemming, testament to its reliance on combined sensory modalities when vision fails. Perhaps the most remarkable twist of this nocturnal narrative arises when the two species' territories overlap in marginal habitats. Instances of interspecific competition have been recorded along the southern fringes of the taiga, where the great gray's forested domain meets the tundra's open plains. Direct confrontations over prime hunting grounds are rare, but the presence of one species influences the other's behavior. Great greys may shift their perches higher into the canopy to avoid soaring snowy owls, while snowy owls adjust hunting schedules to exploit crepuscular gaps. These subtle behavioral adjustments underscore the dynamic equilibrium that governs predator coexistence. As the season wanes and daylight inches back into the sky, both owls prepare for the shift in prey availability and daylight hours. Great greys begin to expand their territories, responding to diminishing rodent densities by exploring fresh tracts of forest. Snowy owls stage southward incursions when food is scarce, appearing as eruptive visitors in outlying regions of Europe and North America. These movements carry genetic lineages across continents, ensuring gene flow among distant populations and contributing to the resilience of the species. By the time spring's softened light melts the winter's final drifts, the great grey and snowy owls have etched their presence across the landscape, having patrolled the darkness with unerring skill. Their survival in the endless night exemplifies a suite of evolutionary innovations: silent flight, asymmetrical ears, reflective retinal layers, feathered extremities, and microhabitat shuttling, each adaptation refined by the crucible of Siberia's winter. For viewers transported into this world, the owl's mastery of darkness is both spectacle and science, a testament to nature's capacity to sculpt creatures that thrive where most would perish. In the interplay of sound and shadow, flight and frost, these silent killers in the dark reveal the hidden complexity of survival beneath the longest night on Earth. From the vantage of a drone's slow sweep above the snowbound landscape, the Siberian wilderness appears deceptively serene, a tapestry of ivory plains and dark conifer silhouettes under an opalescent sky. Yet beneath this silent facade, an unforgiving contest unfolds, a relentless struggle dictated by the simple arithmetic of calories earned versus calories expended. Here in the depths of winter, every morsel of food seized or lost writes the story of life and death, of desperate hunger driving predators and prey alike to extremes of adaptation and endurance. As dawn's pale light stretches across frost-hardened rivers and snow-laden thickets, the Hunger Games begin anew. In the forest margins where tundra yields to taiga, a pack of grey wolves moves in low formation, their noses close to the frozen earth, interpreting faint odor trails left by migratory reindeer. Packs here in Siberia frequently span 8 to 12 individuals, a social unit honed by millennia of cooperative hunting that maximizes success against large, agile prey. Each member's role is defined by a complex hierarchy. Dominant alphas dictate pace and direction, steering the group toward likely grazing grounds, while beta and subordinate wolves fan out laterally, flanks poised to intercept fleeing ungulates. Over days, these hunters wear down their quarry not through a single explosive chase, but a strategy of endurance pursuit. As reindeer circle to graze on pockets of lichen hidden beneath shallow snow, their exhalations create swirling steam plumes that betray their position. The wolves press onward, their own breaths crystallizing into frosted whiskers, bodies burning fat reserves to fuel the high aerobic demands of the chase. The reindeer, in turn, employ their migratory instincts and finely tuned group cohesion to survive. They move in tightly knit herds, each individual guided by peripheral vision and constant tactile feedback through the herd's collective movement. When under pursuit, the herd shifts into a compact formation, adults forming a protective barrier around calves whose energy reserves are critically low. Young reindeer, newly adapted to galloping on snowshoe-like hooves, stagger beneath the relentless pressure, their brown and white coats blending into the fanged shadows of drifting flakes. In this contest of stamina, the wolves aim to isolate the weakest runner. By forcing a gradual separation, they increase the probability of a successful kill while expending the least possible energy. On a bitter afternoon, as wind-driven snow scours the pines, the pack closes in. From a concealed vantage behind a fallen spruce, the alpha signals with a low growl and a quick head turn, and the wolves surge forward. The camera, tracking on a mechanical rig, captures the moment a lone calf falters. Its breathing shudders with each breath drawn through frozen nostrils, its limbs heavy from exhaustion and the metabolic constraints of scarce forage. In that instant, the pack converges and the landscape erupts into powdery chaos as predator and prey collide. The calf's panicked leap sends a spray of snow into the air, but the wolves' coordination leaves no escape route. With a precise, synchronized pounce, they overwhelm their quarry, jaws clamping down on limbs to halt its flight. In the aftermath, the pack's energy reserves are replenished by the calf's warm flesh, but only barely. Each mouthful fought for tooth and claw, earned in the currency of life. Not far from the site of the wolf hunt, in a glade where birch branches sag under the weight of ice, a Eurasian lynx crouches among the shadows, eyes glowing with a reflective sheen that pierces the grey daylight. Unlike the endurance strategy of wolves, the lynx relies on ambush. Its powerful hindquarters coil like a spring, capable of launching the cat several meters in a single leap. Drawing on a solitary adaptation of territorial hunting, the lynx patrols a domain rarely exceeding 10 square kilometers, marking scent posts at regular intervals to warn other predators, wolf or fox, to keep their distance. Its ears, tipped with characteristic black tufts, swivel independently to discern the faintest movement of a snowshoe hare, whose seasonal color change from brown to white is itself a deterrent against detection. Hauntingly, the lynx can detect a rabbit's footfall beneath packed snow by tuning into the micro-vibrations that traverse the crust. These vibrations propagate even through layers of ice, betraying the rabbit's position to a predator attuned to subtle shifts. When the hare scuttles through a narrow corridor between wind-sculpted drifts, the lynx strikes. The camera's macro lens captures snow crystals fracturing beneath enormous paws, muscles rippling beneath thick pelt engineered for insulation rather than speed. The lynx's metabolic adaptations are remarkable. Resting metabolic rate drops by 20% during prolonged cold spells, a conservational tactic that offsets the high cost of producing antifreeze-like proteins that protect renal and hepatic tissues from freeze damage. In the final seconds before capture, the lynx's hallmark feature, the retractable claws, extend in near silence, embedding into the hare's flanks with lethal precision. Within minutes, the lynx drags its prize into the lee of a felled tree, a preferred feeding site that shields it from scavengers and wind chill. Elsewhere, the subterranean network hosts another arena of desperation between predator and prey. Wolverines, gulo, the burly mustelids known for their ferocity, roam vast territories that can exceed 1,000 square kilometers, searching for frozen carcasses left by bears or wolves. In the depths of winter, when fresh kills are scarce, wolverines follow scent trails for kilometers, excavating snowdrifts with chisel-like claws to unearth frozen ungulate remains. Their jaws, capable of exerting crushing force sufficient to pulverize bones, allow them to extract marrow and scraps that other scavengers cannot access. But these solitary scavengers also risk confrontation from larger predators. On occasion, a wolverine will defend its find against wolves, using bluff charges and simulated attacks to hold ground until it can feed. For wolverines, the thermodynamic cost of digging through deep snow, an expenditure of up to 400 kilocalories per hour, must be balanced against the caloric return from the carcass, highlighting the razor-thin margins that dictate winter survival. Symbiotic patterns emerge even amid competition. Raven flocks, Corvus corax, sensitive to the silhouette of a distant kill site and adept at following predators, often assist wolverines by circling overhead, their sharp calls alerting the mustelid to fresh carrion. In turn, the ravens peck away at exposed flesh and discarded scraps once the wolverine moves on, thriving in a frigid environment by exploiting the interdependencies of the predator community. This cascading web of interactions, from wolfpack endurance hunts to the quiet patience of lynx ambushes, from wolverine bone-crushing to raven-assisted foraging, forms a continuum where each species shapes the behavior and survival of the others. Amid this ever-shifting mosaic, survival strategies extend beyond direct confrontation. Small mammals like voles and lemmings, whose populations can boom and crash in multi-year cycles, employ rapid reproduction to outpace predation. In boom years, their densities reach levels sufficient to satiate predators, sparing many individuals from capture. In crash years, their scarcity forces predators to diversify diets or expand territories. Such fluctuations ripple through the ecosystem, influencing not only predator numbers, but also vegetation patterns. Heavy vole grazing can suppress certain grasses and sedges, allowing less palatable flora to gain ground, which in turn alters the forage available for ungulates.
As the Hunger Games of Siberia rage on, the camera lingers on moments of subtle desperation as much as on dramatic kills. A fox half sapped by cold, scavenging beneath a wolf's discarded bone. A group of stoats, Mustela erminea, their white winter fur failing to conceal their frantic hunt for a dwindling supply of mice. An eagle owl perched atop a weathered pine, surveying the icy plain for the slightest shift in the snow that signals a vole's passage. Each scene underscores the fragility of energy budgets. A failed hunt can mean the loss of hundreds of calories and trigger a cascade of physiological stress, from depleted fat stores to increased risk of hypothermia. When spring's weak sun finally breaches the skyline, melting snow and heralding new growth, the survivors of winter emerge with bodies lean and worn, but tempered by trials that have culled the weak and shaped the strong. The wolves' packs adjust size as dispersing juveniles mark out new territories. Lynx pairs take advantage of budding hare populations to rear their own litters. Ravens shift from scavenging to nesting, and wolverines abandon frozen carcasses to the warmth of dens hidden beneath thawing mounds. In this crucible, every calorie won or lost has etched a new chapter in the evolutionary narrative, refining the strategies that bind predator and prey in a perpetual cycle of survival. Through the lens of an immersive cinematic narrative, the Hunger Games of the Siberian winter reveal complexity beyond simple predator versus prey dichotomies. They showcase how endurance, stealth, social cooperation, and opportunism intertwine to sustain life in one of Earth's harshest arenas. In the shifting dance of packs and herds, in the subterranean pursuits and aerial ambushes, nature's brutal mathematics becomes an epic tale of resilience, where each triumph and defeat echoes across the frozen expanse, and where the relentless pursuit of survival writes the narrative of an ecosystem in perpetual motion. Under a pale dawn sky that shifts from the bruised violet of pre-dawn toward a steely breakfast gray, the frozen arteries of Siberia shudder and crack, announcing a transformation that is as violent as it is predictable. For months, snow and ice have held the land in a white vice, but now the sun's high arc teases surface temperatures above freezing, and the first rivulets of meltwater weep from drifts, carving transient channels through the pristine landscape. In the low-lying valleys, these channels converge, swelling common rivulets into roaring torrents that burst through ice dams with the force of pent-up glaciers. Logs, boulders, and ice flows hurtle downstream in a maelstrom of wood and water, reshaping riverbanks, gouging new channels, and flooding floodplains in a hydrological rebellion that upends the winter's order. Camera drones swoop above these spring freshets, capturing the gleaming sheen of energy unleashed, while underwater rigs reveal trout and grayling swept in eddies beneath newly cleared channels, their gills straining against the currents even as they exploit rich pulses of oxygen and foraging opportunity. This eruption of flow does not merely herald the end of winter. It redraws the very contours of the ecosystem, washing nutrients from upland soils into wetlands, refueling microbial blooms that will feed entire food webs in the coming months. As rivers break their frozen bonds, the forest and tundra awaken in concert. Brown bears, whose bodies have lain in dens for months, emerge with a collective groan in vertebrae and muscle tissue, their metabolisms shifting from torpor to activity. These bears, having subsisted on stored fat through the leanest season, carry residual thermal inertia from fat's high heat of metabolism, but now face a renewed calculus: to feed or to fast. Their first forays often target carcasses revealed by melting snow, the frozen remains of ungulates that could not outrun starvation, preserved like grisly monuments to winter's toll. Bears consume these frozen reserves with honed instinct, extracting marrow from ribs and bones with jaws capable of cracking through rivulets of ice, effectively recycling last season's nutritional capital to bootstrap spring's anabolic demands. Yet fresh greenery soon calls, emerging shoots of sedge, alpha-rich roots, and tender willow catkins offer carbohydrates and protein, critical for rebuilding muscle mass. As the bears transition to a mixed diet, their foraging shapes the early vegetative succession. Through selective browsing and trampling, they open canopies for light penetration, inadvertently sculpting next year's berry patches and ungulate forage zones. Predators beyond the bears too reassert their dominion. The first wolves that emerge from den sites
often atop south-facing ridges warmed by early sun, begin to patrol ancestral trails, testing prey populations that have also rebooted their lives. Caribou herds, driven by the need to carve on windswept plateaus to avoid insect-borne parasites, pass through thinning river ice crossings, their hooves echoing on wet stones. Wolves mark these crossings, scenting trails where elk and reindeer compress the snow into slushy paths. Ambushes occur at narrows where animals must pause, and for a brief life-or-death moment, predator and prey lock eyes in the watery vestiges of winter. Lynx, too, descend from thick winter coats and silent nocturnal habits to pursue fishers and snowshoe hares in the unsteady light of spring dusk. The noise of thawing forest, branches creaking as ice sags and thaws, the drip of melting snow from needles, masks the soft pad of feline paws, granting stealth even in a landscape stripped of its silent white blanket. But the thaw's reckoning is not only for the living. As snow retreats, exposed ground reveals the casualties of winter's gauntlet. Frozen carcasses of lemmings and voles that failed to find sufficient subnivean refuge, small rodents whose subcutaneous fat stores depleted before spring's return, and even the occasional archaeological wonder, a lost fox kit, or an ancient ungulate calf preserved in permafrost. These carcasses feed raven and crow, red fox and wolverine, and as scavengers gorge, they distribute nutrients into the soil through excrement and carcass shredding. This nutrient pulse fuels the explosive growth of permafrost-pocked meadows. Purple saxifrage and buttercup unfurl petals to the sun. Sedges sprout fresh blades, and leaf buds swell on birch and willow. In these verdant niches, insects hatch in synchronized frenzy, providing protein-rich feasts for migratory songbirds returning from southern overwintering grounds. Their aerial shoals cloud the sky in murmuration, a visible tide responding to the unseen flow of terrestrial nutrients beneath. Amid the rising chorus of frogs and running water, a subtler cast of characters retakes the stage. Ground squirrel burrows thaw from the edges inward, and emergent individuals stretch from hibernacula that once held near-freezing bodies in torpor. Their hearts accelerate from 2 beats per minute to normal rhythms in a matter of hours, a reawakening orchestrated by rising ambient temperatures and daylight's photoperiod cues. Marmots scale rocky outcrops, sunning themselves on boulders, basking in the warmth while scanning for eagles and foxes. Snow geese and swans descend in ragged V formations, landing on newly opened lakes, their guano enriching littoral zones before they migrate again northward to breeding grounds. Even insects fractured through ice, springtails and chironomid larvae, saunter upward in a metamorphic rush that sustains amphibians last seen in frozen stasis. Just as the thaw is a reckoning of mortality, it is also a reckoning of opportunity. Fish that spawned beneath the ice in late winter await the flood of gravel-free spawning grounds, depositing eggs in clear, oxygen-rich currents now sculpted by meltwater surges. Dragonflies burst from nymphal skins on submerged sticks, their exoskeletons cracking like brittle armor, emerging as aerial predators that temper mosquito swarms. Plant pollinator symbioses reignite as bees, and flies collect nectar and pollen, facilitating the sexual reproduction of tundra and boreal flora. In each of these scenes, the ice's retreat functions as a reset button. Competition intensifies in newly available niches, reproductive clocks accelerate, and life's race begins anew in a compressed window of productivity before the next winter's siege. Through the camera's eye, the thaw becomes a cinematic sweep. From the rupture of ice dams to the first blooming of lichens, from the lumbering emergence of bears from dens to the darting silhouettes of weasels on marsh edges, the soundtrack of rushing rivers, warbling calls of geese, and the far-off howls of wolves weaves into a tapestry of resurgence. Yet beneath this celebration of rebirth lies the sobering memory of winter's cull. Every living thing on this stage has been tested at the threshold of existence, and only those whose strategies, whether physiological, behavioral, or architectural, were sufficient, have endured. For these survivors, the rapid return of daylight and resources triggers life history imperatives. Females carry fetuses or lay eggs, timed to match peak forage availability. Juveniles must grow rapidly to build reserves for their first winter, and newly arrived migrants compete for territories carved by returning sedentary populations. In the final reckoning, Siberia's winter emerges not as a mere season, but as a crucible that forges community structure, species interactions, and habitat mosaics. The thaw's tumult, rivers in flood, predators on the prowl, survivors emerging, underscores nature's cyclical pulse, where each annual freeze and melt sculpts the evolutionary pathways of its denizens.
As the camera pulls back to reveal the vastness of thawing plains and swollen river basins, the viewer is left with a profound understanding. In this land of extremes, life is defined not by consistency, but by rhythm. And it is winter's fury and spring's reckoning together that write the definitive chapters of survival on Earth's coldest frontier.